Stop sharing.
I'll give you your 5-minute warning.
5 minutes warning?
Yeah.
Or 1 minute
I'll give you your 5-minute warning.
warning? Okay, 6 minutes, right?
Yes, at 5. Yes, you got 6 minutes. When you're at 5, I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds good. Me. So greetings, everybody. Thanks for being here today. My question for this group of 1 million cups is the NOCO Experience podcast the right tool for the job? And the job I'm talking about is regional expansion. And I have to give a little backdrop first. What we do is build chapters of small business owners. And these chapters meet once a month in a board meeting / support group type environment where they learn from each other. I'm the mixologist, so I find the smart, ambitious, growth-oriented people to put into these chapters. And I find the facilitators that are people that have had a successful business journey that want to give back to the community. I pay them as subcontractors, but not too much so that we can keep our dues very affordable. The evolution of the business, I started it when I was trying to become a food vendor. A restaurateur actually first, and I became a mobile food provider with NOCO Think Tank on the side all the way up to 18. And at that time, I was really being split. I had a food trailer for a while, became an investments guy, but it was pulling me apart. And so I hired an intern, started putting some structure behind my ideas and some process behind how we find members and how we run chapters and how do we train new facilitators. We launched our second product, the Builders chapters for the little guys, in 2019, as well as the next level chapter for the larger operators. So some of our members have grown, we'd left some people behind. I also hired Rory and Deb as the first 2 non-intern staffers. In 2020, we launched the Catalysts chapter, which is the key employees of our mid-sized members. Alma joined the team, and then about a week later, Rory departed. And so Alma, you'll meet here in a little bit. She's running a few minutes late because of an errand for me. She really carried the marketing and digital experience role the last 2 years, or the last year. We also launched the podcast in 2020. You'll see a little bit about that soon. We refreshed the podcast this year, and then just this month, tomorrow is our first official meeting of the next level Catalyst, which is a key employees group for the larger operators. And that's facilitated by Allison Seebeck. We've got a lot of failures in our record as well. I tried super hard in Cheyenne to expand there in 2018. I paid for outsourced lead generation, as well as trained some facilitators and tried to build chapters in the Denver metro area. Zero revenues there. Last year, tried hard in Longmont, and ultimately have kind of decided to pivot to get bigger and stronger here in Northern Colorado so that we have the horsepower to really make a stab at geography. And maybe not me. Maybe my role can be to find other Kurt's in other places and help them to be the community builder that I've been able to be here in Northern Colorado, give them some systems and things like that. So that's part of the NOCO Experience podcast. We tell long format business journeys with what I think are really inspiring business leaders. I also talk about faith, family, and politics in every episode, and we close with the craziest experience of your lifetime that you're willing to share. And so I've done 64 episodes now, and the guests really love it, which is the thing that really drives me more than anything. Here's a few of them. This is Heidi Ganal. She's candidate for governor, but also the founder of Camp Bow Wow. And the Matthews House staff, Mike O'Donnell was the founder, or not the founder, but the leader of Colorado Lending Source for many years. Black Bottle founder. Emily's one of my next level members. She's like 30 and has 200 employees in the oil field services business industry. And so we just get some really outstanding people on, and we've gotten a lot of traction. This is basically where we refreshed it. And we got up to, you can see about 800 plays per month. We switched to Buzzsprout from Anchor, and it's kind of plateaued a little bit there, but we had a 250 download week. We had a 70 download day just the other day. And what I think is cool is a lot of it's the old stuff. People are going back and listening to the stuff that's been done a while ago. So they just keep ticking up, even those old episodes. So the theory I'm running with is that it's hard to build relationships when you're a stranger in town. It takes long enough here. That brand recognition is hard, and to do so in a way that's compelling can be, if you just put yourself out there, everybody's like, no, I get too much of that already. And so if we can add value to communities and awareness of what Local Think Tank is and does through the podcast, then my place in opening a chapter in Colorado Springs or Boulder is, instead of my 2000 Astro van I have now, that we can upgrade and have a podcast studio equipped Sprinter van, and I can go down, have a few interviews with notable business leaders, maybe one or two facilitators that want to be leading the Colorado Springs expansion or the Glenwood Springs expansion, for example. And we can provide marketing support as well as the training and systems and process in a more of a franchise or licensed model. So my question to you again is the Local Experience podcast the right tool for the job? And if so, how do we use it? And one more. Right here, I probably wrapped up a little bit too soon.
You were at 5:47, so nice job.
Not too bad.
So what feedback are you looking for?
Just, I guess, how do we use this tool that we've created? What are some of the ideas that you have for, especially building listenership, both locally and regionally? Marketing strategies for new markets when we get there. We're at least a couple, 3 years away. I want to have us be stronger here in Northern Colorado, where there's the business community I care about more, but also build momentum toward a geographic expansion and have something that, like I said, kind of will plow the soil ahead of opening new chapters in these new places. So it's a broad-based question.
Great presentation. I don't have the answer at all for you. I don't know that space. But I think the focus being of expansion might be challenging before, and I know you said you're a few years out, but I would just focus mostly on regionally and really trying to demonstrate that process first. So thinking of slides of how we got to, what % saturation within Northern Colorado, so that way it feels more like going regional makes sense because you have experience in a plan that has worked.
Right, fair. Kind of proving it. And we've been able to, grow like 1.2 chapters per year on the average. And so it's difficult to launch these chapters, and that isn't the kind of pace that's going to attract somebody to it in another marketplace, especially if we're taking a cut of the revenue spent.
So something you might consider, I know somebody spoke from Pirate Radio, but do you reach out to get on other people's podcasts? Because I know that and I'm thinking more locally, but I think that would be the perfect way for you to start to reach an audience that you don't necessarily reach here locally, but might be interested in that format as well. And it gives you a chance to talk a little bit more about what you're trying to do, and then draw people not only to your podcast, but also to your think tank groups.
The answer to your question is yes, I have. I've actually had more people reach out to me, but most of it's kind of in the past. I haven't actively tried to reach out to become a guest on other podcasts very intentionally lately. And Alma, are you taking notes here, or is this all recorded too?
It is recorded.
Okay, very good. And by the way, I'd like to introduce Alma Ferrer. She's my digital experience coordinator and really my right hand at Local Think Tank. And I'm very thankful for her for putting this presentation together and making me look professional. Best you can. Okay.
So the strategy of using your podcast to grow your franchise, I'm not seeing the connection between the two.
Yeah.
So I see a podcast as building brand recognition by providing education. But how is that going to lead to someone wanting to start a franchise? And so then I think about the franchising model, which you have processes and systems that someone can use.
Right.
And so are you providing resources for people wanting to facilitate these types of think tanks beyond the podcast right now? Like they go online and subscribe to some materials or trainings?
That's good. I've thought that perhaps offering some kind of a facilitation training
Training
program or even a digital program or things like that might be an intriguing way to do that. And to answer your first question, the connection is that within these chapters, people learn from the stories of others anyway. So that shared experience, that understanding that comes with story, with navigating a journey. So they're doing similar things. And then we have a commercial in the middle of each episode that said this show is sponsored by local think tank, providing, value-driven peer advisory in Northern Colorado community, that kind of thing.
So I don't understand podcast marketing very well, but how do you target the people that you want to listen to your podcast and the people that you want to make your logo?
Well, you can do kind of direct targeting on like Facebook ads and things. The social media is generally the platform that they grow the most. We've had more success on Instagram because I find it less disgusting than Facebook kind of, and as well as LinkedIn. But it's a challenge that it's not easy to build a community around something like that. And we're not quite clear how we're doing it. I got one back here and then one up here. Oh, and then John, I'm sorry.
One proxy to look at that might be interesting. There's the founders of course, now I'm blanking on their product. They manage commissions for sales organizations, Quota Path. He started a podcast called Value Props because he was a pilot and he's kind of doing the like comedians in the car type interview, but in a plane. So he's flying with like a VP of sales or something. But they did a really good job at connecting the product, so like local think tank, to the podcast and having that story align with the challenges. Because I get the general concept of this is founders, this is their challenges, but there's not really a catch there. There's not something narrow and specific that makes me understand what you're going to talk about. And that might be more relevant.
Yeah, thanks. One of our ideas that we haven't really executed is to have what we call thought bubbles episodes that are 5 or 10 minutes that are topically focused and that are taken from these longer interviews, but that can be digested in 10 minutes instead of 2 hours. I've got over here and then.
I would say we'll just go down the line. We'll go
Okay.
Ben, Gloria, John.
It's funny that you just said that because that was kind of one of the points I was going to make. Podcasting is a hyper-saturated market. There's a ton of competition out there for competing for people's attention. Long format podcasts has the additional challenge for most people's attention spans are that of a gerbil, right? So,
Yeah.
And I also think the market that you're targeting is also a very busy market. So people don't have a lot of time to leverage. So I'd love to see if you can distill, like long format is great. It's very useful for in-depth topics, but it's not like you just said easily digestible. So I'd love to see you have a spin-off product or something that can get people introduced to you in a more digestible fashion, that 5 to 10 minute segment, which then they can lead them into your longer, more deeper content.
Do you think that's within the local experience episodes, just shorties mixed in, or is it a whole different show kind of thing?
I think it's almost a different product line. And that they don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? They tie together, but I think that you're going to have different user experiences for each path.
Right.
And the other thing that I heard you say up there that was really interesting that didn't come through in your presentation is how powerful a medium story is to help people learn and develop.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think, something that you want to leverage as far as that's your connection point, right? Of tying the podcast. You're telling me stories.
The reason for this.
Exactly. And stories are how you help people navigate these muddy waters of entrepreneurship and how people have done it successfully, and learn from them so that you're not recreating the wheel and
Yeah.
making the same mistake.
Thank you. That's.
Use story. I think
A
stories are
little
great.
bit, but not as much as we could.
What occurred to me was that you should be a speaker, get on as many speaking panels as you can for visibility in the local area. So people see you as a personality. And then from there, you have a product that you're adding value. And from there, they sign up for the podcast. I'm thinking of Dave Ramsey, what a very successful podcast he has. And it's because he's a personality, well-known, he's got it, I'm going to help you with your finances. and sign up for my podcast. And then there's a progression in that, and tools that he gives in that. And I think that just going to the podcast, I have a podcast too, but I'm not there yet. I can generate as much content as I want to,
Right.
but that's me. It's just me. But you, personality wise in the area, I think is important to me.
Piggyback there. I was just thinking, do you have something that's more targeted to, like, when you go into these new areas, like a set of 3 or 4 episodes that you can do the straight target, say, this is what the benefit is, and here's the stories that go with it. Something like 5 or 10.
Well, and that's still kind of in the distance because we're not
I'm
trying
just
to.
trying to think.
But yeah, I think that's part of creating short content that people actually want to consume that may or may
it's
not
tough.
lead you to this longer stuff.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you laid out almost like a pipeline, of how you get from where you are to where you want to go in terms of this is where I want my people to be eventually, whether it's to have people join existing groups, or do you want to have new groups formed? Where is it you want to go? Have that a little more clear and defined, and then think about, okay, what are the 3 or 4 steps or the pathway to get there? Because what we're talking about here in terms of the podcast and the personality, that takes you down one path where you are the show.
Yeah.
It's more about Kurt, which is fine. Then you can have a personality, people want to be part of that. Or here's the process that I'm building, and that's the direction I'm taking people. So just kind of visualizing where it is you want to go and how the big
Yeah.
picture in the front.
I feel that, and I'm kind of process shy in my nature. And I don't really want to be a guru, so to speak. I'd rather be a personality kind of. So that's one of the gravitations toward the podcast is I can just be the podcast host asking interesting questions, not trying to be the answer provider because I'm not smart enough.
So I think that there's 2 things here is what do you want people to, what are people getting? What's the outcome or the result, the tangible result that they're getting from joining local think tank? Because that needs to be clear. If that's the case, like what do I get for giving you my time and my money? What's the outcome that I get? And then what's the outcome that you want the people to get from listening to the podcast? So I think you have to always be clear on what it is that you're delivering. And then once you have that for the podcast, tying it back to what they get from joining so that it's still, even if you're asking a question, it's still always a funnel leading to local think tank.
Yes, and thank you for that. One of the things I like about the podcast is anybody can buy the podcast, that only business leaders and owners can be a part of think tank. And so 95% of people can't be buyers or whatever of our product, whereas the podcast, if you are just curious about business or whatever, you might consume it. But yeah, I think that distinctiveness.
We've got James online here.
Okay, hi, James.
Hello. Podcasts are obviously a very crowded market, and I love them. But what I always find is missing is a podcast about why there's a podcast.
Sure.
Where's James?
Be clear about your purpose, why you're there.
Yeah.
I'm not just taking up air. I'm doing this for this reason, and here's the benefit to you.
Yeah, we could definitely be clearer about that in our promotion.
Have you noticed any connection between podcast listenership and local think tank membership?
Yes, we've got a couple of applications now from people that we didn't know that listened to the podcast because of our magazine advertisement, and then applied and one has joined and one's kind of on the radar still. And I've heard secondary feedback from business owners that, hey, Bob, my other friend that owns the business, has been listening to your podcast and he really likes it. So I'm hearing secondhand feedback from folks sometimes that it's the right demographic is listening. Right.
Have you thought about going into doing something like you go into local businesses to meet with the business owners and doing like a 5-minute commercial of their business like an interview in their business of them. And then take that as like a YouTube clip or whatever and blast that on social media and just promote their business. And you become then like the expert in interviewing people in their businesses. And then people will want to connect with you because they want another way to, as a small business owner, to have somebody validate their business on social media besides themselves and their own local promotions. And then it like creates you as like this go-to, kind of like getting on the radio station.
Yeah.
Pirate Radio just invites people on to do their, 5 or 7 minute segment.
Yeah, that's an intriguing, it could feed well into the local think tank, the podcast guest list and everything. I do about once a week with the long form podcast, and I guess to be frank, I don't really want to stop that. I love that format too much, but I
But
could
it would like
add,
lead into something.
that could
like
be a
you
feeder
know?
that really.
But somebody, like if somebody's like really interested, then it's
Right.
like, then you have an interesting person to
And
talk
it cost
to.
me an hour in
Right.
total, to go interview somebody at their premises and have all do all the legwork behind.
So I think to that point too, what would be good is if you got testimonials, if you help them craft their story of like, before I joined LoCo Think Tank, this is what I was struggling with. This is what I got working with LoCo Think Tank. And here's where I am now. And you can promote their business. That would be promoting their business while also
Sure.
promoting LoCo
Yeah, we
Think
could
Tank.
focus on our
And
membership
that could
first.
be, that could be your 30-second, 1 minute break that you're talking about. Advertisement break is a story within the story
Yeah.
each time.
I
So
like that.
that's just something to consider. And that could just be recording.
We could get all that
Anyhow,
content.
one more and then we're gonna have switch for a coffee break.
Right, and then how local think tank is different than tab or. Map
Yeah,
Star.
Distance, whatever it's, yeah. Have that, that's just that is part of our brand already, is that we're more community connected than many others, and we have, the Better Business Bureau and the Innosphere and the Loveland Visitor Center Chamber all host our chapters, because we're helping the little guys kind of get to the next level.
And I think having those local discussions with businesses will just reinforce that.
Yeah,
right? So
yeah, I
we're
agree with
already-
that.
We're already part of a team.
There's some pretty good ideas in there. Okay.
Jenny wants to get her 2 cents in the last second.
Well, if you want to expand, I was just thinking that having guests from a particular location, right? So you could set it up and just do like,
Right.
we're gonna work with this group this week, and then you'll get into that network that way. So for each location that you want to focus on, developing like the guest list from that area.
For sure, yeah. I don't want to do it yet, but yeah, that's kind of part of the premise is
Yeah.
go do Colorado Springs famous businesses there, 4 months before we even really try to do it.
But if you do them as a group, right, then you
Oh, yeah,
immediately get that into the network.
yeah, fair enough. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Alma has local experience podcast stickers just like this, if anybody wants one.
Oh, I was looking.
We'll just pass the pile around. You grab one if you want.
Sure.
Go ahead and grab your second cup of coffee. We'll get Pigeon on up, and she's already working on that, so.
Here's the first one.
Oh.
So,
Need that. Really good that. Yesterday.
So, yeah, I was just like, I
Point
can't.
now,
do it.
or-
It's like, cause it's drivers do.
Sure, you'll think about
It's
that.
great. No, it's during the day.
Another job.
Yeah.
Dear Gloria.
I am very good.
How's it going?
There they are.
Well,
Next quarter, like, we're tired.
Yeah. Starting to just do wireframe.
I will be nice to
Which is the
you.
first one?
Oh, good. I just know my brother.
Family.
Yeah. His whole.
More excited because they're like, yeah. All right. Right, dude, you gotta make this happen.
But people finding out about it. Oh, I heard about you through so-and-so. How about you? Out of the area. Denver. Not doing anything. So they're like taking. So we're like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you have to,
Scaling.
for it to go this way, it's just like, I'm gonna just provide as much value.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
That's correct. I was over there.
I don't know, I guess
What?
So Christina yesterday.
First
Over to, the old egg bag.
Yeah.
I thought she was in the wind.
Yeah.
Well, she said she was going to switch.
And the lot that I parked in is actually kind of, yeah, it was construction, and that's why the parking lot is empty.
You know what? All right, let's head back to your seats, please. Yeah.
That's fine. There's somebody I know, just like you. It's so fun.
Yeah. No, I'm up at 4 AM in my state. Yeah, I'm over there.
She's up at 4 AM.
Good.
Your business and how much that. Like my dad's worried about her. She was in bed.
Yeah, that's like, if I go to bed before midnight.
Exactly. All right, we've got our second presenter today. Hey, you're there. All right, so we've got Pigeon, also known as James Fiedler, and with liminal, you're doing liminal operations, right?
Correct.
For your book? Sorry, I realized I didn't have that one written down. So liminal operations, Pigeon's fun fact is that he likes spicy food, but like enough to know the crazy numbers. So a jalapeno is 2,500 heat units, and he eats stuff in the like 100,000 plus range, and even tried a 2 million unit burning hot sauce. I don't want to know how that one turned out. Actually.
Something else.
I'll turn it over to you.
Sweet. All right. Very happy to be here. Hopefully you can hear me okay. This isn't really a pitch. I know Natalie just said, hey, I'd like to see how you're doing. So she knew how to summon me. She put a deck of cards and an oatmeal stout inside of a circle of coffee, which brought me what I've been up to since launch NOCO 2020. And it's pretty short, a little bit about me, what I've been doing, lessons I've learned since then, and my short ask, which is really simple. I'm not asking for much. So starting with, if you haven't had the misfortune of meeting me before, I'm a 25-year military retiree, 5 years in the Army as a sergeant, 20 up to lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. Last assignment was associate professor of political science at the U.S. Air Force Academy. When I retired, my idea of chasing tenure track positions was not idea of a good time. Plus, my wife said, honey, you can retire anywhere you want after you get out of the Air Force, as long as it's Fort Collins, Colorado. So the tactical problem, happy as a clam as an instructor. Plus I got continuing appointment, which is like tenure light job protection. In addition, I also now teach at Cherry Hill Seminary in the Department of Theology and Religious History, chief operating officer of formerly Evil Beagle Games and now Mobius World Publishing. And look, liminal operations at the bottom of the list now. And yes, the Pigeon is the coup of Mobius World's publishing. We did not see that ahead of time. Short note, I got my nickname from this old bird right here, who in June I'll have had for 26 years. And What I do for fun, I like to make electronic music, which is equally time intensive as what I do for my job, which is problematic. All right. So what have I been doing for Colorado State University and Cherry Hill Seminary? I got 2 books coming out in August. This is a second edition for current world problems. The first edition was just for my classes. A second edition is wide release to other universities. And then since it's a 100-level course, it could be worth a lot of money. 2 book proposals in, article hopefully being submitted this summer, article published this past spring. And one of my big items, as if writing a couple of books isn't big enough, I'm trying to build a games research center, major and minor at Colorado State University. I have a small team put together now, going wider for the fall. My first grant proposal was rejected, but that's okay. The comments said, hey, this looks great. Keep doing it, just refine it. All right. Then Mobius Worlds Publishing. We basically, Evil Bill Games was sunset and a bunch of us reformed a new company. The same tentpole products. Prowls and Paragons is a role-playing game for superheroes. Freedom Squadron is like a love letter to G.I. Joe and near-term sci-fi. And then within Prowls and Paragons, I'm writing 2 settings. Her Majesty's Rakes and Scoundrels is a steampunk setting set for release in Q2 2023. Maximum RPMs is basically Mad Max, released in Q4 2024. And then Liminal Operations. Oh my God, here's the hardest lesson learned. After launch NOCO, I had this big infrastructure, a cool website, which I still have, this, that, and the other, paying up the nose for all sorts of stuff, all for my department had to look at me in the eye and say, Pigeon, just say you work for CSU and charge them a ton of money. You don't need to have a whole separate arm. And at the same time, once clients learn I'm a professor at CSU, they don't want to deal with me as a company. They want the prestige of me working at CSU, and they pay the same amount of money. So it's almost needless for me to have this whole separate arm. By the way, I should tell you what the Liminal Operations is. I take my weird research niche. I study games, emergent political behavior inside of game worlds. For companies and organizations, I basically come in and test them. I say, hey, you have a winter storm coming, it arrives in 3 days, what do you do? Or the power just went out, you have 10 minutes, what do you do? And basically run companies or organizations through their processes to see if they can react appropriately. And hopefully they learn something from it and actually do something about it in the future. Anyway, my most requested products for this are, do I have courses on organizational wargaming? Do I have a book? And do I have easy print and play exercises? I'm like, I can make a lot of money doing that. So talking to Mobius Worlds Publishing, we're thinking of actually subsuming Liminal Operations into the publishing house as an imprint for professional training and educational games, because there's a lot of money on the table for that. Should note here, my 2 big clients, even though I had smaller clients throughout the time, Military Operations Research Society has me on tap to teach a course like every month for their war game course and their cyber war game course. And a Jewish nonprofit hired me in December to run a crisis response game. And in 7 days total work, I probably earned more than I make 3 months teaching at CSU. I'm like, wow. But it was very time intensive. And that's the thing. Speaking of time, I've been on the road quite a bit. This is since November, and it goes through August. 2 podcast interviews, 2 online conventions coming up, and then the rubber chicken circuit all over the United States. Big one coming up in July is a Connections Wargame Conference in DC. That's how I maintain my Department of Defense contacts. And this will be my first in-person one, and I expect it to be quite a lucrative event. Now, I have a short note on marketing. These 2 articles by themselves, like whatever other marketing I've done, these have had over 100,000 views, reads, and I get at least 1 contact every week from each of these articles. This article got me hired by the Jewish nonprofit. So by far, writing and speaking have been my best methods. Like, I don't do any other form of marketing. I almost don't need to do anything. People come find me. That I arrived with a reputation coming out of the Air Force. So It's like I almost don't want to market anymore because I got too much work. So the biggest lessons learned, hopefully I got some time left, are first, it's fun to be working for an entertainment game company. No one does it full time though, unless you work for Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast or something like that. But having a military retirement, it's still decent money and it's fun. But corporate games pay tons. So problem is events take a lot of time. And as although CSU supports me, I don't know they want me gone 1 week a month, heads down, like completely ignoring my classes doing this. So I don't really have the space to do a ton of these. However, books and games, professional games are equally time intensive, but I love the model of write it once and sell it often. Back to CSU. I thought I'm retired from the military. I got plenty of time. I'm only teaching part-time at CSU. What could possibly go wrong? Boy, CSU has a hydraulic effect on everything I do. So I love teaching there. And it's like the home of my research. Without CSU, I can't publish my research. But it's a barrier to expanding further. I really can't scale any more than I am, which is fine. Plus, on top of that, I'm still in the point of my 3 employees are me, myself, and I. I do all my own work. I don't have any type of admin support. So I end up finding myself doing a lot of this and not as much of this as I'd like to do. So it really comes down to this. Put all these harebrained schemes together that I have, which I love doing. And what's great is they all leverage off the same core work that I do. So it's not like intellectually taking me out of my comfort zone. But man, if I could nail this, like improve my organization and what to delegate, that'd be great. That's all I want. If anyone wants to have a cold beer with me or a coffee, and I'll drink your beer if you don't. Just like, what do you do to organize yourselves as a solo person with a bunch of hands in the pots? So with that, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or thinly veiled threats, reach me at CSU or my website. And yes, now I'm ready for questions and comments.
All right, thanks, Pigeon.
Word.
It's not even gonna take the time to clap. You've got it.
No. I want to be the first to say I would take you out to a beer in a heartbeat. You're incredibly interesting.
Yeah, sweet, thank you.
My advice right out the gate would be, especially in the corporate world, if you're serving them, I know 250 compared to $20 an hour seems like a lot, but I would triple that and get, some sort of an agent type, because you would crush it with, I mean, the combination of the war games there. I mean, when I was hearing that from more of the corporate mindset, they'd pay a fortune to get you in there, because it's both engaging with the people they're teaching, but also informative and good for the company.
Sweet.
Ben,
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that, since having been in the corporate supply chain world for a long time. I mean, this is something that's rampant throughout the industry, is that corporations are not prepared for traumatic events in their organizations. And if you can develop content that will help them prep for that, like I've personally shut down a P&G production line and cost them $500,000 an hour that it was down. So like,
Wow.
I understand like the implications of large scale supply chain issues and how fragile the systems are right now, because they've been, for the past 6 decades, basically just been funneled into an efficiency mentality without any really respect for resilience and or flexibility into them. So if you can come in there and actually truly do, like a deep level analysis and provide, a crisis scenario and run them through that and prove that, hey, you can pay me, a couple grand an hour and, take your team through this, half-day workshop, and it's going to save you in the long run the potential to lose millions of dollars. There's massive value proposition there.
my guess is if you were to increase your price to at least $1,500 an hour, that would be the most marketing you'd need.
Yeah, maybe, sorry to show, but pick in there, like you was bringing up, manufacturing, but I'm gonna do it. Think of all the different kind of corporate segments, because if you can stay focused and like pick at one for a bit, like be the best at DevOps and then be the best at sales ops or be the best at manufacturing, and you'll get the attention of those, that'll sort of self-market, because people are looking for those resources.
Beth,
Dig it.
The other thing too, and these guys didn't tap into it, but the whole organization, the people side, which is really where you have the issues. Because equipment runs, right? It's the people who run the equipment that sometimes you have to help a little bit farther along. And since, you know, per Ben's point, a lot of these organizations have been so efficient, but they're over engineered for efficiency that they can't handle tweaks or things that happen, like somebody sticks a wrench in the system. And I mean the system, not necessarily the actual equipment. The people part is a hugely, hugely problematic aspect of that. So I would add the organizational people, HR stuff, is going to be as important as the actual process operation, because that's where the problems usually fall in. And those folks don't even know what they don't know. So I also think that the gaming aspect is an intriguing way to get people interested in this.
Peter,
Yeah, I think that the value that you bring and the credibility that you bring in, I think you need a staff. I think you need to kind of switch the whole model around to somebody helping you to delegate and time management. Let me hire folks to do that for me.
Yeah.
So thinking about, well, I mean, that you just basically put together a dream job that you want, a description that you want, and put it out there, and you'll get people at CSU volunteering to be part of your team.
Right.
basically all the things he doesn't want to do.
All
that
the
goes
things
on
you don't
his
want to do,
job
write
list,
those
right?
down, and you'll get people volunteering to be part of your team just to be on your coattails.
Dane and then Kurt.
Yeah, Pigeon, it took a long time to get to the piece that everyone's latched on, which is the company crisis response testing. You talked a lot about everything else you've got going on. But it seems like that is kind of your core opportunity. And I really like the way you phrased it of company response testing, not training. And I wouldn't charge by the hour. I would charge 40 grand for you to come in and test the organization's response and not do response training. I don't think that's your skill set or your specialty. It's that testing that you do that big corporations will pay you a lot of money to tell them what they're doing wrong, and then let them take care of the training in-house. And I've been a part of crisis response trainings that are weeks long in oil and gas, onshore, offshore. Like, all right, we have a rig explosion. What do we do? What's our response? And they dedicate their entire workforce of engineers to respond to this fake game for 2 weeks. So they're already spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on it, and having you come in to test it would be a huge value. So get your whole CSU salary in a week rather than 3 months.
I just didn't know if you had a rebuttal on that one.
Oh, no, this has all been great. It's
And
great.
then you can retire from CSU. You will be too busy.
Exactly, there's that.
Yeah.
Kurt,
Two things. One, love to have you on the podcast. I think that would be really good. And then,
you need to bring the beer.
yeah, I'll bring the beer. Yeah, I got whiskey, I got wine. Oatmeal stout, right?
Yes.
And then number two, love to just get your quick take kind of on the world, because you're such a student of kind of the games that nations play and militaries and stuff like that. Give me the 30-second Pigeon's perspective.
Wow.
30 seconds.
Okay. On the one hand, it's the end of the war on terror and the resurgence of great power politics, where China and Russia actually matter. However, Russia has proven to be a paper tiger. That how quickly their military was crushed in Ukraine. It caught a lot of analysts off guard. I am worried about Putin doing something rash, if you will, because I teach a course called Comparative Authoritarianism at CSU, and if he gets a sense that he's cornered and he's at risk, he will lash out in some way. And a nuclear power that's dangerous, even if it's just a tactical nuke. Even if he just launches a conventional warhead onto a US city, that sends a signal to the international community. And I see that thanks to ongoing COVID issues, I think everyone's being too lax now. Supply chain issues are not going to dry up soon. demand is not going to dry up soon. And the war, even though it's just in one part of the world, as I tell my students in my current world problems course, you pull a string here in the world and it's going to pull over here as well. And that's going to be an ongoing problem. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, one last comment. You had one, Ben?
No, sorry.
Oh, I thought I saw.
Music.
Yeah, Ian would let him hear that.
Can I put it as a shout out?
Wait, Ian wants to hear about your music.
Oh,
He's
oh,
also-
that's right.
he's
So
also-
I make, I use modular synthesizers, but I do it all virtually. I tried physical synthesizers and I found them I'm too impatient patching everything together. A virtual setup using VCV rack, everything, I can just reset everything in a heartbeat and then save the state. So it's a combination of VCV rack, Reason, Ableton Live Studio. And I do a lot of like space ambient and some psytrance, like EDM. And the problem is, just like everything else, it's very to keep up with it, I have to practice every single day. Otherwise, I forget what a certain module does or whatnot. I also enjoy, because of that, I enjoy editing audio. So like if someone wanted help editing, for example, a podcast, that's I like doing that just for fun.
Another job.
Say he doesn't have enough to do. It sounds like
Another
he's bored.
job.
Yeah.
All right, well,
I'd
there
like
you go. Another oatmeal stout right there.
I'd like to give a shout out
Yes.
to first, I'm glad Kurt was here because I love listening to him talk. And I'm glad to see that Dr. Morse is here, because if you're not signed up for her newsletter, sign up today. Do it. I'm an avid reader of it. It's good stuff. So, yes.
Awesome. Thank you. And James online here says, I have a deep respect for people who make me feel like an idiot. I knew somebody would know what he was talking about in here. So, okay, so who has a win? Who needs help, or who has a resource that we need to know about? Matt.
So I have a request for help. Peter and I are interviewing early stage entrepreneurs to basically validate what we're trying to build with our product, which is to help early stage folks find the resources they need with their company off the ground. So if you know any early stage entrepreneurs, we'd love to talk to them. So,
We'll buy them coffee or beer or lunch.
right.
How early?
Pardon me?
How early?
It's a legit question.
How early?
Where,
Oh, I
Early
thought you meant how
stage-
early for the beer.
I have to play somewhere.
Oatmeal stout is breakfast.
Yeah, that's what I thought he was asking.
Yes.
How early an
So,
entrepreneur?
When I say early stage, these are people who are thinking about starting a company, but haven't jumped off the cliff, as I say. They're in the very early stages that they are just setting up their business entity, and they're still trying to figure out who their customer is and so forth, and what their product is. And then the other one are people who are pivoting. So they've got a business, but they're pivoting where they're going. So those are the three groups we're focused on. Perfect. See me and we'll.
I just looked in June 22nd, NOCO has a free think, a happy hour free think at our office. So look for that on our website. It's 4 to 6 p.m. There'll be beer, there'll be light snacks, and you'll basically see what a NOCO think tank chapter looks like, but just kind of a free experience for anybody that's curious.
When was that again?
June 22nd, I think it is. I just looked, it's on our, should be on our website. Is that right? Yeah.
Those are
Always on it.
super helpful. Those are great. Yeah, I recommend. Yeah. I have a win, a resource, and a help, asked all in one. So I'm moving out of my garage for my coffee roasting business, moving my office. So I found a place that is all in one. It has a lab in the back for coffee roasting and an office in front for my main business. But it's way more shop space than I can use. I think it's close to, it's more than 1,000 square feet. And I need a very small corner. So this used to be a lab. So it's run with instrument air and plenty of electricity. So if you know someone or need someone who wants to move out of their garage in this transition space where they need to get into an industrial space of their own in maybe 6 months to a year, that would be a huge help for me to sublease to them or to you. So let me know.
Did I hear you describe it as a party in the back and business in the front?
There will be a couch in the back and coffee roasting.
So it's the mullet office?
Yeah, yeah.
Where's it located?
It's in the Link Lane area, the old industrial park behind Home Depot. Oh, just 2 doors down from like Horse and Dragon. So
Even better.
yeah. So work hard and
Any-
then go get a beer.
any-
An oatmeal stout.
Did you say any particular type of business?
I'm open to discussions on anything. Just knowing that I'll be roasting coffee back there.
I finally got to win. Both the books are online.
Hell yeah.
1472.
Anyone else have a win, a resource, or need help? Summer vacation was out today.
Is that a win or an ask for help?
Yes,
Please.
yes, it's both of those.
And then our open slots.
Yes, and again, the open slots, we have June 1st and June 8th. If you want to just give us an update on where you've been and where you're, give us an update on the last time you talked. We would love that. And if there's nothing, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we need help spreading the word about the podcast, so grab a sticker on your way out.
Okay, there you go. All right, well, nothing else. Thank you so much. Same time, same place. I will not be here next week, but I'll be here tonight. Probably the best smelling garage.